Hello, welcome to today's webcast where we're going to talk about the noble purpose. My name is Demet Tunç. I lead the Customer Experience Council at the Conference Board. I'm together with my speaker, Olivier Onkenatov, today. Welcome, Olivier.
Hello, Demet. Hello, everybody.
Well, let me give you a couple of tips about this webcast. To get the most out of it, you can ask questions during the webcast. To be able to do so, you need to type in your question on the left bottom of the screen, and I will pose them to Olivier at the right moment. The more interactive it is, the better the conversation is. So please, we encourage you to participate with your questions. You can also share this webcast with your colleagues within your network who might have an interest, and you can download the presentation in PDF format if you wish to do so. Okay, that's all about the tips. So let me introduce you to Olivier, which is not that easy. I would call him an entrepreneur. He's an activist. He's a business philosopher. And he helps leaders, he supports people, he supports the humankind actually to have an impact starting with their own noble purpose. He encourages teams to work effectively towards a common goal. He supports the organizations to shift from transactional short-term results to houses of noble purpose, which is a big mission. And he's a person that is very good in finding the balance between the spiritual depth and the business and economic relevance. His passion is to inspire. Olivier, you've written a book about noble purpose, which I truly enjoyed reading. And you start your book with an impactful life experience you had at the age of 27. So you were in Colombia, you were kidnapped, and you were in this thin line between life and death. And in the end, you survived. It's good that you're here with us after that many years, but this experience have led you to think about the essence of life. And then you started to become very passionate about inspiring people with the power, impact, and beauty of purpose. I must say that you achieve a big part of this mission by the messages you give in your book. But do we have to go through such an impactful life experience, such as being kidnapped in your case, to realize the true essence of life? What do you think about that?
Yes. Well, thank you, Demet, for inviting me, and thank you for your very kind and complete introduction. And hello to all of you taking the time to be with us today. I hope this will be meaningful and interesting for you to spend this hour with us. To come back to your question, I don't think that we all should get kidnapped. Of course not. At the same time, what I do realize is that often people spend more time every year planning their annual holidays than once in a lifetime taking the time to plan their life. And I find this really remarkable that we as human beings, we as human race that is so innovative, that is so creative, that is so incredibly gifted and talented, that we go in that kind of realization that we first need to have something happening to us. And it can be losing somebody important, it can be being fired, laid off, it can be having to restructure an organization, it can be to get a serious illness. And it is really only then that people will start questioning themselves and start asking the question, why, for God's sake, am I doing all this? I think this whole pandemic we are knowing that we're going through is such an interesting situation for people to start asking that question. And actually, it happened months ago that people being totally confused and totally in anxiety about what is happening started asking, do I really want to continue doing what I'm doing? Do I really want to keep working for that organization, or do I really want to keep going on? Because when we are connected with something that is really essential through something that is very often, unfortunately, happening outside of us, a pandemic, an illness, losing somebody, a crisis, an economic situation, only then we seem to, as human race, we seem to be starting to question ourselves about what is really essential. So to end this part, I would say, let us be proactive, and from a proactive connection with life, what is important for us, let us, from that proactive approach, look into what is really essential for us as human beings.
I see. Actually, everybody from politicians to business leaders is talking about the purpose. So we need to have a purpose, we need to have a mission, we need to have an objective. So nowadays, I see that it's becoming more of the word to use in a sentence, more than an objective to live with, or a desire to achieve. And actually, the title of this webcast is that noble purpose is not a hype. So it's just not a marketing gimmick or a commercial word to use.
Yes.
How do you see that? Could you please elaborate a bit on that?
Yes. Well, I think this is really spot on, Demet. Actually, what I do see is that now everybody is really everybody is talking about noble purpose, which on the one hand I love, because I think it is really important. Now we will, at least I hope, we will understand through this webcast why noble purpose in life, in society, and in the economy, and in the economy is so important. But at the same time, there was a really interesting article that I read, written by a Dutch economic journalist, and she said, you know, now everybody is talking about a noble purpose, the word, we should kill it. And obviously I reacted to that because I have a very different thought about it. So what I see is that in Davos, the World Economic Forum, they were having conversations about noble purpose. The Roundtable has signed a declaration where 181 CEOs have all signed the commitment to start leading or entrepreneuring or doing business around the essence of the organization, which is noble purpose. We see that many business magazines, we see that in tourism, we see that in many aspects of life, everybody now starts talking about noble purpose. Many organizations start communicating about, we have found a noble purpose, this is our noble purpose. And when you take a deeper look, I think this is not noble purpose in many cases. This is something very different. And I'd like actually to show or make clear what is, for me, the difference between a noble purpose and an objective. So from a corporate perspective, it is very important that we understand corporate noble purpose as something which is aspirational and which is holistic and which is something that is really going to push the organization at the service of solving any social, societal, economic, humanitarian, ecological problem. So more and more organizations are understanding that it is very important to respond to some needs that we have in society, that we have in the world, instead of being solely focused on the shareholder value. And this is a very new thinking. It has been going on since a couple of years, but now it is really culminating into this very clear pronunciation that we need to align all together, all the stakeholders, on what we stand for as an organization. There is also the digitization, which has a huge impact on the way how organizations and brands are being perceived and are being liked or disliked by customers, because everybody now is connected more or less with everybody. And so if organizations, if enterprises are doing things that are considered as not okay or not tolerable or not really in line with sustainability, or not in line with humanity, or not in line with tolerance, or not in line with diversity, people simply will start writing, people will start blogging, people will start commenting, people will start reacting or acting. That's really very interesting. The third thing is also that we see more and more that there is a demand for the long term. So there has been decades where enterprises were really thinking short term. They were only thinking about shareholder value. They were thinking very much like Milton Friedman's idea of business is there to do business, with all obviously the collateral we had with that, because it was interpreted very narrowly, purely in the interest of the shareholders. So there is a lot of confusion, and that is what I would like to let me go to the following slide. That is what I would like to explain with the following slide. I think there is a difference between what I call noble purpose and an objective. It's great to have an objective in life, and it is great to have an objective or to have objectives in an enterprise. But that's very different from a noble purpose. And so I have put here the list, and by the way, those who are present and want to have the presentation, which is, by the way, very short, you will be able to get the presentation through the conference board. So let's take a very brief look at what is the difference. The difference is that a noble purpose is something which is really noble. It is at service. It is at service of others. For example, I can think of having an objective which is good for me, but how would my neighborhood, how would my friends, how would my clients become better of that? So when I'm at service, my objective becomes something which is at service of others. And that is a noble purpose. Very important also is that a noble purpose is what I call intemporal. It is not something that is for now and next year. Once you have defined it as an individual, as a team, or as an organization, it really is something that becomes something that you're going to live with for the coming years, even decades. And that is why it is so important to make a distinction between setting objectives in an organization. Objectives actually should be part of a noble purpose, but a noble purpose is something that really takes that requires philosophical reflections, that requires integration of all the different stakeholders, that requires integration of the different ideas and the way how different people in the organization live it. So then it can become something of long term. Also,
well, then in that case, it is actually the CEO, the chairman of the company, who needs to walk the talk, right? Yes. About this, because if he or she doesn't walk the talk about this noble purpose, the mission, and so on, everything will be linked to the financial results, which yes. Does not always mean that it will live long. It can also be short-term results based on transactional activities. But if the CEO talks about the noble purpose, believes in it, so the whole teams need to move towards that.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. So definitely it is the shareholders or the management board or the CEO or the chairman or the chairwoman of the organization who needs to be exemplary, that is for sure. But the definition of a noble purpose is not limited to that one person or to a small group of people. Maybe the initiative is taken here, but then I think a wide community should be involved in defining the noble purpose for the organization. Otherwise, it's going to be very much like a top-down thing, and it's going to be something that people feel like it's being declared as almost a dictate from the organization, and people will not buy it in. So it is really important that there is a process of integration of different perceptions in the organization. But the initiative for sure has to come from the top of the organization, and very important, there is to be a very important alignment between the supervisory board, the board of directors, and the management board. That is really essential. Two more important things around differences between noble purpose and objective, to make this short and crisp, is that the drive from noble purpose is something which sits in the organization, in the team, or in the individual. I have a noble purpose, and that propulses me outwards. When you're living by objectives, very often the trigger comes from the outside. Oh, it could be good that we do that, or oh, it could be interesting that we go there, or maybe that is the right step to go next. So it's very much triggered from the outside, which makes us actually go kind of like all over the place. And very often we see that organizations that have a very strong noble purpose, they're very rigorous about the strategy, the tactics, what they want to achieve, how they want to achieve it, and who will be involved in that. And the last one, which I think is also really interesting, both on an individual level, as on a team level, as on an organizational level, having a noble purpose creates a certain serendipity, a certain quietness, a certain focus. Whereas when we are all the time triggered by objective, it's like one objective, we realize it, another objective, we realize it, another objective, we realize it, and we sometimes miss, if not to say we often miss, and I see that very often in the organizations and the enterprises where we advise, is that people feel like there's all the time this running behind objectives, but they don't have an overall holistic approach of things. They do not see the meaning in things. So that is, I would say, the most important differences between what is a noble purpose and what is an objective. One more thing I would like to say, Demet, to your comment on the financials. Let's not think that when you have a noble purpose, that is eating away the financial performance. On the contrary, you will see that later in the couple of slides that I would like to show. But that is the difference between noble purpose and objective.
I see. Olivier, you say that noble purpose is something that stays with you forever. It is like an organ of your body. It's like your heart, your liver, your lungs. But we are, as human beings, are in constant transition. Life changes, and therefore does our noble purpose also change. So the purpose that you have on your life differ according to the state you're in and according to the age and position you are in your lifespan, is it or not?
No, it's not.
Okay.
Because if it would be, then we're more talking about objectives. We are in different parts of our life. Things are differently interesting when we are 20 or when we are 40 or 60 or 70 or when we're coming to the end of our life. And then we will probably want to realize some objectives. That will differ. When you have defined, when you have connected with your noble purpose, when you're clear about what is really essential for you, then it is something that is going to be your guide. And your objectives, your ambition, what you want to achieve in life, whether that is your private life, your social life, your family life, your business life, your philanthropic life, all the lives we have, it will always be coherent, connected with your noble purpose. Said differently, if we miss or we lack a noble purpose as an individual or as an organization, the impetus, the energy will come from the outside. And we might get lost on the road, on the journey to realizing these objectives. When we are connected with noble purpose, when we are connected with something which is transcending ourselves, it gives so much different energy and so much different focus. So no, you do not change your noble purpose once you have defined it. What people might feel is that they can think that they have something which is more important, but if it's not really a noble purpose, it's more of an objective, and then they will jump from one objective to another. Another thing that people often say is, oh, can I have 2 or 3 noble purposes? No, not really. You have like one noble purpose. You're meant to be there in life, and that is actually what is going to give you that incredible energy, what is going to really make you engaged in life and engaged in the things that you do. And I actually have a slide on that one, Demet. So can I move to the next slide to show that part?
Please do so.
So Gallup, the American Research Bureau, has been doing some incredibly interesting research around the reason why so many people get disengaged from what they do. And obviously, this is something that we are intrigued about. In my organization, GINPI, the Global Inspiration and Noble Purpose Institute, we work with enterprises, organizations, governments around the world. And very often when we talk with people, when we talk with leaders, people who are leading other people, often there seems to be something missing. And this is something that comes back and over again. And we really got so intrigued. So I wanted to understand why that is. And actually we got some really confronting figures here. We know that about 85%, that is 85% of the global active world population above 18 is disengaged from what they do. And within that group of 85%, there is even 18%, and now it's even bigger. 2019, they're up to 20% are actively disengaged. So the cost of this, from an economic perspective, from a humanitarian perspective, people not feeling happy, not feeling connected, feeling disengaged with life. Also from a health perspective, the percentages of burnout, of dropout, of even suicide in some extreme cases, of people being less effective and efficient than they could be, is costing the global economy billions of dollars every week. Every week we lose in the global economy billions of dollars of lost performance, which means, said differently, that should we have people engaged in what they do, should people feel that what I'm doing is really meaningful for me, then we will go into that performance boost, that performance increase, which would just be incredible. And when we work with organizations, very often what we see is when the shareholders or the leaders tell us, it's amazing what has happened in this organization. It's kind of like magic. Well, maybe to a certain extent it is magic, in the way that once you start engaging people, once people start being proud of what they do, once people start being connected with what is more important than the transactional role they have, people really become better versions of themselves. And I have a slide here that is trying to explain this. We have 3 essential days in our life. Obviously, the first one is when we're born. The second one is when we understand why we are born. That is actually when we make that connection with our noble purpose. And the third one, and I think it's the most important one, is the day when we start acting, when we start aligned, when we start being aligned with our noble purpose, which means that from that day on, and I got that insight through the revalidation process I went through after my kidnapping, but it can be any moment. You can decide for Christmas, I'm going to take 2 days or a week to start reflecting what is important. With Hanukkah coming up, you could say, you know what, I'm going to take off some days and I'm going to take the time to really reflect and connect with what I think is really essential. Or if you have found that, because it's very possible that you have found it and that you are connected with your noble purpose, reinforce it and look how you can reinforce it. So for me, in order for organizations and teams to have engaged and connected people, you have to go to look for something which is, and that is something very different than an objective or a transactional relation that we can have with the work we do. It is a much deeper relation.
Okay, thank you. I would like to remind the audience that you can ask your questions to Olivier by typing in the left bottom of your screen, and I will pose those questions to Olivier at the right moment. Olivier, in your conversations, in your workshops, you share several occasions about your humanistic and positive view of humankind and life, which is very inspiring. But at the same time, it's a bit naive, or some people may find it a bit naive. So do you believe that the human race, the humankind, is caring enough about the noble purpose, and are they positive about it as you are? Or if they are not, what needs to be done to turn this into a positive outlook?
Yes, it's a great question. At the same time, it is a difficult question in that sense that very often I'm really puzzled. When you look at the question, what is meaningful for you? What is important in your life? When you ask that, when we ask that, when I do keynotes, when I do conferences, when we work with with people around the globe. And so this has nothing to do with culture or ethnic differences or country differences. We see that both in the West, as in the South, as in the North, as in the East. There is really no difference. Almost all the people will always come with things that are in the energy field of I want to leave a legacy, I want to love and I want to be loved, I want to interact in a positive way, I want to care for people, I want to be there and be seen as somebody who has really been relevant, important, caring, and what have you. When we do work around values, and we ask people, can you think of people that inspire you for who they are? And give us some characteristics of what is important with these people. People will come up with they are authentic, they are integer, they are caring, they are empathetic, they are professional, they are consistent, they are tolerant, they are open, what have you. Nobody ever tells, oh, I'm intrigued by people who are driven by power. I'm very intrigued by people who are pure ambition. I'm really inspired by that person, that friend of mine that is egocentric or that is driven by his or her ego. We never hear that. So it is actually really interesting to see when you ask that simple question in a business context that we get very humanitarian connected answers. And then we have an economic business reality which is very different. And I do believe that that is because we have a paradigm, and the paradigm is shifting. But we have a paradigm where we thought that when you go into business, very often, things like vulnerability, things like care, things like empathy were not talked about. They were even considered as weak. We know from research that has been done that all these themes of empathy and care and vulnerability and being present and what have you are the contrary. They are very strong and they help teams and organizations to really boost and to really become successful. So for me, it is totally contrary to that idea of it's fluffy, it's weak. Not at all. Not at all.
Okay. Well, we have one question from the audience, which I think you touched a bit at the start. So is noble purpose something that needs to be embedded within the organization by everybody, or is it something that the leadership just says and lives and which would not be embedded in the whole organization? So
Yes.
What do you think about that? You already touched it at the start, but maybe it would be good to repeat a bit.
Yes, I think the entire organization needs to be aligned. So the initiative can be taken by the leadership of the organization, but the entire organization needs to live it. I have a simple, and this might be interesting, all of you, I have a simple check of how successful you are with defining a noble purpose in an organization. I always say to the leaders who ask us to help them in their transformation, that is that you will be successful in that transformation from short-term transactional to long-term noble purpose driven houses of noble purpose when the hierarchically, not humanly, but hierarchically lowest ranked people in the organization, often that is people in factories or people distant from headquarters, distant from the top, when they with pride, with clarity and with joy can explain to their friends, their colleagues, and their family why they're working for the organization for whom they are working. When that happens in an organization, you know that the noble purpose is not just a marketing thing that nobody really understands. And I have seen cases where that happens, where people, I have even had organizations where I asked them being leaders, reporting to the executive committee, what actually is the way how you live your noble purpose? And there were some people in the room like, do we have a noble purpose? That is not the way how you should do it. So absolutely, a noble purpose is something that should be lived throughout the organization, which is not just a gimmick, as you said, Demet. It is not a commercial thing. It is not a marketing trick. It is something that goes to the essence of the organization. You know, there's 4 things in an organization that are key. I call them the 4 bodies, very briefly. We have what we call the physical body. It's the infrastructure, it's the buildings, it's the meeting rooms, it's the IT infrastructure, what have you. Then we have what I call the mental body. That is all the know-how, all the wisdom that is in an organization, the IP, the models. Then you have the emotional body of an organization. That is the way how people interact with each other and how they interact from the inside to the outside and how the outside can interact with the inside of the organization. But the most important body of an organization, very much like we have as human beings also 4 bodies, is what I call the spiritual body. And the spiritual body is the reason why. Is the noble purpose. It's that deep energy that sits really deep ingrained in the DNA of an organization that needs either to be revealed or that needs to be reactivated. And if an organization taps into that spiritual body, into that noble purpose, then it is something of the whole community, of the entire organization, because people live it, people feel it. It's part of the leadership. It's part of the organizational culture. It is defined also, or further defined by the values that are important in the organization. And everybody lives it, and everybody feels it. I'll give an example of an organization where we have been doing some work, and the CEO called us, and after having launched through a global town hall, because obviously it's a global organization and they could not bring all the people together. So what they did is in the headquarters, they had put up screens, and the CEO and some people who had been involved were explaining what the process had been, and it was being broadcasted all over the world in the different places. And the CEO was revealing the noble purpose through the whole process, the journey they went through. And they had involved a lot of people of the organization. And he said, being quite emotional, he said, you know, Olivier, and this is a very rational engineer. He said, Olivier, you know, this whole process was so amazing that in the town hall, there was about 1,000 people at that moment in the town hall only. People were crying because they were so connected. They were so proud of finally being part of an organization that until he came, and until the leadership changed and they started looking very differently at the organization, they said people now really started being so excited, emotionally connected with what the organization stands for. That is what I mean with it should be part of the entire organization and not only an elite or part of the top.
Okay, well, I think that's a great example. You say that noble purpose is a way of being and doing, and yes, that is going to transform our economy, our society. Well, yes, you say that it will leave a legacy for the others. It will be good for our environment. It will be good for the future of the world, which is yes, so inspiring. But do you have the proof that the world is changing?
How much more proof do you need? The world is, in a certain way, it's falling apart. So look at the pandemic, look at the way how enterprises, which are so important in our life, are being more and more criticized for being short-sighted, for being non-respectful of many things, of creating discrepancies, of creating inequalities, what have you. So the world is massively changed. More and more people become aware of the importance of the ecology. More and more people start fighting for nature, which has been destroyed, by the way, by ourselves and by an economic system that we were part of. More and more people start promoting conscious consumerism. We have been consuming like hell. We have been consuming like, you know, we use something, we don't want to use it anymore, we just throw it away. Now more and more people are thinking of circular economy, of regenerative economy. How can we create cycles where everything what we produce is being used in a cycle that is closed, and we will not all the time have to put in new energy or new elements from nature or new scarce resources. We will just, you know, recycle and upcycle the things we have. So of course, the world, society,
the world is changing.
Human, absolutely. And I have. Go ahead.
No, please. Sorry for interrupting.
I have actually an interesting slide which fits quite well here, which I would like to show, and it is this one. I do believe that when we go back to that working, I do believe that organizations that for me have been too often looking for the short-term interest of the shareholders. And let me say this, being an entrepreneur, shareholder value is important. Being surrounded by entrepreneurs and advising entrepreneurs, I think I know quite well the importance of shareholder value, but that is not the only thing that matters. What really matters is the way how we create ecosystems, where enterprises become ecosystems of holistic looking at things through these four bodies, but also through aligning the stakeholders. And I do believe that we, as entrepreneurs and as business people and as managers and as leaders, we have a huge responsibility to get away from that disengagement, to get people in the place where they can start realizing themselves. So I have this really strong conviction, actually such a strong conviction, as you know, Demet, I have even spent an entire chapter on that in the book, is that I think that it is through work that we as human beings, we will realize ourselves.
Well, Olivier, on the other hand, we are going through a pandemic.
Yes.
People are trying to survive.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody is certain about what's going to happen tomorrow. Nobody
Yes.
is certain about the future.
Yes.
We're going through very difficult times. So,
Yes.
connected with the philosophy of your book, do you believe that people are in need of noble purpose, especially when we're going through a pandemic as we do at the moment?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Now there is one reality that is obviously blurring what is happening. That is that if you do not have food, if you're afraid of being fired, if you're afraid of being put out of your house, we're talking about the global world population. We're not only talking about probably ourselves and the people here in this webinar, which is, let's say, a certain elite and probably privileged. I'm talking about many people that don't even know if tomorrow they will have something to eat, or people who don't have means to get cured, who are ill and they don't have the money to get treated. If you're in that focus of pure scarcity, noble purpose is something that is not going to be on their agenda. Maybe afterwards, when things get solved, when things get arranged, maybe then they will start thinking about it. So I'm actually addressing myself here to a population of people that have a certain comfort in life.
I think we have a problem with the sound.
It's going away.
Okay, now it's fine.
It's going away. So
okay, now it's fine again.
Sorry for that. So I'm addressing myself here to people who have their basic needs covered and who can mean something for the world, for society, for the humankind. People who do not have to think primarily about themselves because there is basic needs that are not being covered, so to say. So the point I wanted to make here, Demet, is if we can contribute through the added value that we create in an ecosystem, which is an organization, an enterprise, a project, an NGO, a community, and we can be part of that so that we can add value to the realization of that noble purpose. So working now is creating added value at the service of a noble purpose of the organization, whether that is very small or whether that is a multinational conglomerate. That, I believe, is the way how we as human beings can self-actualize, self-realize. Now, I do mean with that it means that we have to be connected with ourselves so that we can connect with the purpose of the organization. And if organizations understand that we have a huge opportunity to help people, our employees, all the people involved through the stakeholders, to let them be successful, to let them progress in life, I have a strong conviction that that is going to help organizations to be more successful. When you want to make your people successful, you as an organization will be more successful. If you drive people from a transactional approach, you'll have very transactional interactions. And that is why we have all that disengagement in the world. And I have a very nice quote to say that organizations, for myself, but also for somebody who was a very esteemed and still is a very esteemed entrepreneur, Henry Ford, said, "A business that makes nothing but money is a poor business." And I think when we were talking about that paradigm shift, that more and more business leaders start understanding that necessity to be of relevance for something more than only increasing the shareholder value or the market share. More and more leaders start to understand that that is the result of what they want to achieve in life. So more and more people and more organizations want to work for something that is going to be at service of society, of the world, how small or how large that can be interpreted, because this is also for this principle is also working for very small organizations as it is for very large organizations. But as long as we are working and become aware of our necessity to work for something that is of social, human, ecological importance, we will not be poor. On the contrary, and I can give plenty of examples of organizations that we have been working for that have become even more successful than they were before, thanks to that shift in paradigm, thanks to that transformation of connecting with a noble purpose, and by that serving something which is bigger than only the shareholder value.
Interesting. Olivier, once I attended one of your conversations, you asked a question. You said, why do you do what you do? I think this is an interesting question. Shall we ask the same question to the audience and they can type in their responses? So
yes.
Is that the right way to phrase the question? Why do you do what you do?
Exactly. Yes, that's
or
the right way.
Why do you wake up in the morning? What makes you get out of your bed? So if you can type in your short answers, why do you do what you do, or what makes you get up in the morning, we can see the answers and elaborate a bit more on that.
Yes.
Okay, so we have some responses, because I know I can have a positive impact and contribute.
Which obviously is very important, because if all of us, we start looking at why we do what we do, and we really take that question serious, and we're really standing in front of what I call our life mirror, then we will all have similar answers. Nobody wants to miss out on the opportunity of having positive impact, of helping others, of solving problems, of thinking ahead of what is not existing. I think, by the way, that is part of what an entrepreneur is. I don't think entrepreneurs create enterprises for their own short-term benefit. I think they create enterprises because they believe they have found a methodology or a product or a service or an invention or a solution for something that is needed. And that is really creating something, I think, quite special in the economic dynamics that we know in the world. Look at many enterprises that have been created for a specific reason. That is actually also what Henry Ford was saying. A business that makes nothing but money is a poor business, because it is not about making cars. It is about making something very different. And if it is only focused on increasing the shareholder value, I think that then would be very, very poor. And I think, and if I can move on to a next slide, which I have, is something probably very essential for the people in the room. That is moving into the realm of what I call love and ship. It's that loving, caring leadership. It's allowing for people to become better versions of themselves. It's really allowing people to grow through what they do. And if organizations more and more become aware of how we can link that economic aspect of we want to realize our ambition, we want to open up new markets. And we want to do that in a way that it is at service of something. It is not so much opening a new market, or it is not so much growing our business, but it is because our business is really relevant to contribute to better health, or to more sustainable ecology, or to better work environments, or to more safety in the world, or to better connection, or to higher quality mobility, or what have you. And we do that by supporting our people to become better versions of themselves. That is where people will start connecting with that higher order that is being given to an organization. You can only do that if you really care for people. So if you can show vulnerability, if you can be empathetic with people, if you can really care for others. And that is why I like to propose that organizations that very often lead people to KPIs. Again, I'm not saying that KPIs are wrong, but often people create organizational cultures that are purely KPI driven. I would like organizations to start shifting in, obviously, the way how they lead, to shift to CPIs, which is caring for people indicators. And I really believe that a huge paradigm shift is going to happen in organizational transformation. When we can understand that people need to be supported and cared in their growth, so they can be even better versions of themselves, to be at the service of the purpose of the organization, because that is what people connect with. And we do that by installing caring for people indicators. I really believe that that is going to transform. We have had, to just mention one client, it's a Spanish pharma group, and they have gone on that journey of noble purpose transformation. And they did an engagement study after 1 year. And the bureau that helped them doing it, they said, we have never seen anything like that in our entire history. We have never seen an organization where the people engagement increased with over 15% in 1 year. They said, what have you done? That is what I mean. Noble purpose is not a hype. Noble purpose really is something which is fully ingrained in the economy. It is fully ingrained in our society. It is fully ingrained in our lives. But it has a huge economic impact. It has a huge societal impact. And I do believe it has a huge human impact as well.
Interesting. Actually, as you know, I lead the Customer Experience Council, and we always talk about the link between the employee experience and the customer experience. So the happier, the more engaged your employees are, your NPS scores go higher, and the experience the customers go through also increases, because this shows that people are engaged, they love what they do, and they also contribute to the purpose of themselves and also to the company, which shows at the end of the day in the business results, in the financial results. That's very interesting, yes. Olivier. Well, thank you very much. Also for this. Sorry, go ahead.
Just one minute on this. Noble purpose is something that is much more than a philosophical principle or a theoretical thing. The noble purpose for me is really about business. It's really about the economy. And it is a different way of looking at the economy. Where in the 60s through more or less the 2000s, it was totally okay to prioritize shareholder value and to prioritize the short term. The paradigm has been shifting. We have had the financial crisis. We have had a lot of, I would say, consciousness around ISIS and all these terrorist attacks. We have had a lot of questions around the pandemic going on. And so that led to very different awareness. So I do believe that, and it is a very slow process, but I do believe that the transformation into a new economy, into a new economic era, is really happening, and we're all part of it. The impact, though, on the finance part is huge. And we know from research that has been done by several people who have been looking into the matter of purpose and sustainability and also the sustainable development goals, that organizations that do go into that transformation, that decide to make that shift. We can speak about Nike, we can speak about Danone, we can speak about many other organizations. they see the financial impact. It might take us a bit of a part. I can speak about PSA, Peugeot Citroën. I can speak about other organizations. The impact, the financial impact of that is just enormous. So I would say maybe as a final question to all of you, why would an organization not want to support the people, to get them more engaged, work more because they love it, because they feel now connected to something bigger, having a huge impact on the performance, having a huge impact on the financial performance. So everybody gets better by it. And that is actually very often the reason why people want to go through that transformational path, because they say, actually, it's true. You know, I had never looked at it from this perspective. But at the end of the day, it has a huge financial impact. And in the economy, that is still very important. But the way how we get there is very different.
Okay. Well, thank you, Olivier, for this inspiring book. I know that it's available in 3 different languages, French, Dutch, and in English. Well, as a business leader, starting with the why and with a clear definition of noble purpose of the company, contributing to people's lives will eventually lead to contributing to the society and to the economy and to a better future of this world, to a brighter, meaningful life, which you talk a lot in your book. As I've said, I really enjoyed reading it. I think I will read it again. It's been some time that I've finished it, so I feel like I need to read it again. But it's really interesting to see your thoughts, and I also love the way you inspire people, that you contribute to people's lives. I think that is a great purpose that you have. Well,
thank you.
If you can allocate a couple of more minutes to give us your feedback about this webcast, we would be very happy. You can connect with Olivier through LinkedIn. His book is available on Amazon and also on bol.com. He also has a website where you can further reach out to him and ask your questions. And thank you for your attendance. We hope to see you in the next webcast. And please give us your feedback and have a great, happy, healthy, safe day. Again, thank you so much, Olivier, for your words, for your contribution.
Thank you, Demet, and thank you to all of you to have taken the time to be here. And I hope it has been interesting, inspiring, and useful. And let the season be sweet and good to you. Thank you and goodbye.